Yes, guys, and a welcome from me. This is Championship Manager 0102. A little discussion for you now then. This could be a very interesting one for some people. Positions. Now, the best positions of a player. Now, this is an interesting one because I thought about this video as I was doing a previous video, and my example here is David Beckham. Beckham is a midfield centre, midfield right. So, let's take Beckham. Let's take Phil Neville, right? Midfield right. Now, let me go straight into this here. I'll just include a couple of Man United reserves if we can. Let's take Darren Fletcher. So the difference between attacking midfield right and a midfield right. So depends really what formation you're going to play. But if you're playing 4-4-2, would you play an attacking midfield? In theory, some people may think, it's an attacking midfield if I'm going to do that. Or it's a midfield if I'm going to do that. Because in actual fact, right, if you move that MR to there, it becomes an FR, forward right, correct? Just like if you put him into, if you put him in here in the wing back or in the attacking field, it doesn't actually say right. It doesn't actually say like AMR. It actually says AM, bit like it says there. Whereas if you did it up there, it's forward right, midfield right, defender right. Whereas that is wing back right, attacking midfield right. So I'm intrigued to know here, what your perspective is of the wingers, particularly the wingers. Do you have an attacking midfield right or a midfield right? Now, for me, right, and this is what the gist of the video is, a player's position, it just depends on their attributes. Simple as that. And I've had this discussion with Gary Johnson of late about defensive midfielders playing in a more forward role. And I'm going to point something out that Gary Johnson actually suggested, which is a very valid point. But basically, for me, you look at David Beckham, right? Forget the AMR, forget the MR. He's got the credentials to play it on the right wing. Simple as that. Now, for me, Beckham can definitely play there. He's probably, the thing is, he's got good attributes to play in the middle. Clearly, he's got passing 20, he's got creativity 19, but he's also got crossing 20. So, realistically, now remember, if you want to look at a rough idea, again, some people don't take this as gospel, but if you want to look at where somebody, where your assistant manager thinks, that's how I read it, right? So, let's use our assistant manager as a guide. So, we're using the compare players and see what they say to give you an idea. Now, they say that David Beckham is obviously, I'm only matching him against Phil Neville here. But you can get a perspective of, it's all about attributes, right? Now, the attributes here say that Phil Neville would play as a better centre-back than David Beckham, even though none of them actually play in central defence. But in terms of midfield, David Beckham, because Phil Neville don't play in midfield centre. Wing back. So David Beckham would be no good as a wing back, and that's because I would imagine he's got. Let's just have another look. He's got no he's got no defensive attributes. I would imagine 12 tackling. That ain't actually too bad. So talking about what I said a minute ago, let's just talk about Roy Keane for a minute. Now Roy Keane, he's the dog's bollocks, isn't he? And he can play, in my opinion, absolutely anywhere on the pitch. And what Gary Johnson pointed out is how a lot of defensive midfielders, so let's say we've got him here, will have an arrow going forward. The arrow's to determine their attributes because he's got that versatility to play in that forward role. Now, I remember playing a formation and it was something like, I think I had I had a defensive midfielder over here, a defensive midfielder in the attacking midfield because his attributes suited it. And he didn't do too bad. He wasn't jumping at the page, but he was not disgracing himself. So for me, personally, it's about where a player, what he looks like. I had, on my three-man game with Matt, I had an attacking midfield winger, left winger, but his attributes were worthy of being a left-back. So I played him at left-back. I think he got me a 9 on one game, he got me a 6 on another, but that's no here or there. That can happen on any player. So it's an interesting one, what people's perspectives are. Now, I remember reading on the forums, and I'm going to call this a myth here because I don't go with this. Based on what I've just said there, they say on the forums, or it was said on maybe the old forums, that when a player, so we'll take Luke Chadwick for example. No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take Beckham. No, sorry, scrap that. We'll take Roy Keane. because this is a good example. They say that when you play a player out of position, as in not there, maybe you could get away with him there with an arrow going back. But when you play Roy Keane up here, you get, on his rating, you get a default point because he's out of position. As soon as you, instantly, he's already in a negative. Something to do with that. Something like that. I'm not 100%. I don't go with that because I've tested that. I've completely tested it. It's a bit like, really, a forward or a striker. What's the deal? You know, let's just take off this. So you've got someone, you need someone up top, right? Now, Paul Scholes, right, for me, Paul Scholes ideally plays behind a striker. But Solskjaer, let's look at Solskjaer there. Finishing 19. Now, there's no doubt, right, look at his attributes. Yes, he can play on the left wing, he can play just behind a striker, but with a finishing of 19, he would play better as an out-and-out striker. You wouldn't have him, of course. You wouldn't have him ahead of Van Nistelrooy, because Van Nistelrooy's got a more balanced, he's got more balance of different attributes. That's what makes him the out-and-out striker. But Solskjaer can play up there. I mean, you know, let's take what we'll do. Let's take Andy Cole. Andy Cole, 19. Well, we know he's an out-and-out striker. So I think they're going to tell me Cole's a better striker, actually. Let's see what they say. Cole against Solskjaer. Now, Solskjaer, it's really finishing his only thing. That's why it was in real life. He never really could make the grade at Man United as a regular starter. So, yeah, Cole's better by 2. But if you generally look at Solskjaer and then generally look at Andy Cole's got pace and off the ball. Now, for me, finishing, off the ball and pace are imperative for an out-and-out striker. So, you know, I mean, let's take Solskjaer and Scholes. So, Scholes, whatever you want to call it. So they say Andy Cole's a better striker than Scholes. And that's because he probably... hang on, shit, what am I doing? Sorry. That was the same thing, weren't it? Let's just do that again. That's what we wanted to do, weren't it, Div? Okay, let's just see what they say. So they say then, the attacking... Now, this is interesting. As a winger... They say Solskjaer, but that's because Solskjaer can play on the left wing. Scholes can't. But either way, they say Scholes plays an attacking midfield. Now, this only says attacking midfield, striker. It doesn't say forward, because it begs that question, a forward up here or a striker. What, you know, that, just for me, depends on the attributes of a team. You know, there's no doubt about that. If you look at Arsenal, and you have that same discussion... Who do you have up top? Well, you're always going to have Thierry Henry because he's got more of a balance. Dennis Bergkamp probably's got one more year in him in this game. He'd probably sit a little bit deeper. He would sit a little bit deeper. There's no doubt about that. Canu would sit deeper. It's an interesting one, and it's a big debate. Going back to what I said about Roy Keane, Vieira is another example. Like Roy Keane, can play more advanced. You know, you imagine, right? If you had, in the middle of the park, what Gary said about having your defensive midfielders with arrows, so let's just pretend, right, you had 2 defensive midfielders right there, Keane and Vieira. They can both bomb forward. Now remember, yeah, as well as your arrows, you can also get them specifically to run forward. You know, I'm intrigued to know what you guys' perspective is of position of players. You know, what do you think is ideal? It's a bit like, let's have a look now. Let's look at David May. No, David May just deserves to be fucking dead. Sylvester. I would look at Sylvester. It doesn't always work like this. And on the update, not the update, sorry. One of the updates, I think it was 10 years, 2013. Vertonghen at Spurs. He played very similar, defence, left centre. And he looked better to be a defender, but he performed heroics at left back. And that's on my 3-man game with Pep. Pep will vouch for me here. He's an assist machine on that game. He plays better as a left back, but he don't look the left back. Chivu, the Romanian, you know, he's defender left centre. Where's his best position? Gary Neville. Gary Neville, historically for Man United, he was more a central defender. By them attributes, I would say central defender. It's good to have a bit of versatility, of course. Dennis Irwin, well, you'd say which side, left or right back? Well, he's either foot and he's defender right left, so I would play him wherever. I would rather somebody play on a regular basis in the same, wherever they're performing. So let me just have another look at somebody else then. Who can we look at as an example? Okay, so let's look at Pires. Pires, would you play Pires in the midfield with an arrow going forward? Bit further forward behind Henry instead of Bergkamp? Look at his attributes. The attributes are what make it. Would he play on the wing? In my opinion, yes. Because for the wing, you need a creativity. Well, you need crossing. Crossing you need, and you need passing and pace. And acceleration, that supports the pace. He's got good off the ball, dribbling, finishing. I mean, he'd be very, very good, in my opinion. So I'm intrigued to know, right, what you guys' perspective is. You know, let's just have a quick gander at Liverpool, see if they've got anything of interest. Jamie Carragher. Okay, let's look at Jamie Carragher. Where's his best position? Because to my understanding, Carragher's not a performer on CMO 1 or 2. He's pretty shit. But firstly, his best position is probably on the bench because he's versatile. But where's his best position? I would say, fucking hell, I wouldn't have him as fullback. I suppose central defence. Yeah, central defence would be his best position. Maybe, I'd support him in defensive midfield ahead of a fullback. But he's got versatility. He can slide in. And I'll tell you another couple of players that I will just show you. We're talking about best positions. And of course, this next one is going to be, you know who I'm going to, for fuck's sake. Stephen Reed. Now, of course, Reed, amongst a couple of others, but one of the most versatile guys in the game. You look at that, right, he can play absolutely anywhere, but for me, those positions don't mean nothing. They mean nothing. Where does he play? So, before I tell you about Stephen Reed, my brother sent me something a couple of weeks ago. He goes, have you ever seen this player who can play as he was a midfielder, I think, and a goalkeeper? Now, I know we've seen it, and I know there's that Mexican goalkeeper / striker, but this guy, I've never seen him before, but I said, well, his attributes look awful to be a goalkeeper, so I would use him there. So, Stephen Reed, where's his best position? He does get better, to be honest with you. It's definitely not central defence. For me, personally, he's got no position or marking, so I eliminate central defence immediately. As a fullback, crossing, he's not... I don't know, a bit of a rookie fullback maybe. He's got pace, maybe he could develop into a fullback. I think his tackling does increase. Could it be on the attacking midfield winger? Maybe, but he's really balanced. He's not good enough, really. As a forward, again, a real rookie. He's going to go one way or the other. He's got a high injury prone, so I wouldn't even keep him. Let's just stick with Millwall for a minute. I thought there was another one at Millwall, actually. Maybe I'm wrong. And there was one more guy that I want to show you. I thought there was one at Millwall. You'll know who I'm going to here. Yeah, Lucas Neal. That's what it was. Lucas Neal was at Millwall. So Lucas Neal, very similar. Doesn't have forward. Where's his best position? I'm looking at Lucas Neal and I'm thinking, okay, he's got a good, he's got some nice red attributes, which is always a good sign. He's also got a lot of single-digit attributes, which is worrying. He's got good tackling, but he's got no positioning or marking, which for me is a no-no in central defence. As a fullback, he's not got crossing. He's got passing and acceleration. I mean, he is 23. He don't cut it. He does not cut it for me. He don't cut it anywhere, to be honest with you. But who knows? Who knows? So, let me know your views, guys, on player positions. I'm intrigued to know what your perspective is and if you've got any experience. Till next time from me, guys, take it easy.